Hey, what's up? Welcome to another edition of The Mandatory. If you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, follow us on our social media channels. We're at The Mandatory TKO. And if you've already been rocking with us, thank you so much for the support. Bryan, lots to get into, but of course, we got to start off with the face of boxing. Canelo Alvarez has reportedly left PBC. He's now a free agent. And according to the reports, this is because, well, PBC had a deal with him. It was a 3-fight deal, and he was guaranteed 35 million for each fight, regardless if he lost money. And promoters before messing around with Canelo, they've lost money on some fights because sometimes those pay-per-views don't make as much money as they're guaranteeing Canelo. So PBC was okay with giving him the 35 million guaranteed if it made sense on the business side. So they were like, yeah, we're good if to do it with Mel. Then Mel put up a stinker against Canelo, right? And they were good with giving it for him and Benavidez, but I think PBC was like, yo, pump the brakes. It doesn't really make sense to give you 35 million guaranteed if you're going to fight Jermall Charlo. And Canelo was like, well, that's not going to work for me. That's not the deal I signed up for. And he's walked away from PBC. They have mutually decided to part ways, reportedly. And no, you could go either way. You could, take Canelo's side, you could take PBC side because it's like a business move. And there's lots to get into here. There's lots to unpack. Bryan, your thoughts on Canelo Alvarez leaving PBC?
This now a lot of people are not going to take Canelo Alvarez's side here. Not that I am, but I do think that PBC is in an interesting spot, and by interesting I mean a pretty bad one. It looks like, just from the standpoint of business wise, a lot of fighters are leaving, and you have this deal with Amazon now, who I continue to say I'm not sure how much Amazon is going to care about boxing because they've entered into sports before, not Thursday night football, but like just general sports coverage. And that went away quickly because it was mismanaged. I heard that from somebody this week. So, looking at how they're going to sort of handle the boxing side, if they're not going to be serious, that's the last thing a boxing product needs is a media company to not be that serious. And the reason why this affects PBC is because one, they're partners, and two, we're in basically March now, and there's been one PBC on Amazon card formally announced for March 30th. And now we're seeing that Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin, which we did put a clip out on already, that looks to be agreed upon. So in theory, that would be the second card. When PBC was on Showtime and also with Fox, but when PBC had those deals, they would come out the gate, the beginning of the year. Here's what we have until June, basically. Boom, 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 boom. Keith Thurman versus this person, Sean Porter versus this person, boom, 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 all the way like the first half of the year. Now, sometimes things would have to get pushed back, things wouldn't materialize, whatever, at the end of the day, but you would still get several fight cards from now until whenever the summer comes. And now you're seeing a lot of fighters leaving. Subriel Matias is the latest one of the latest ones, who just went to Matchroom. That's interesting. Eddie Hearn is talking about he'll welcome back Canelo Alvarez and try to get David Benavidez, because David Benavidez's situation is now sort of unknown. We know he's going to fight in June in a light heavyweight fight. I come to think of it, I don't think that's going to be on Amazon. I don't think that was announced part of the press release. Was it?
I have no idea. Did
Yeah,
not see the
because
press
like,
release. Yeah.
yeah, it didn't even look to be the case. So it's like, if Eddie Hearn is saying that, hey, I can make Canelo Alvarez versus David Benavidez, then there was another report saying that Canelo Alvarez may rejoin the zone to fight Jaime Munguia and Edgar Berlanga, one before the other, this year, whatever the case may be. Those aren't PBC fights. So I think PBC is in an interesting spot because the next person we're going to talk about is also not on a PBC contract anymore after having one fight with the promotion. So I think they have some things to figure out. And, it's a platform that boxing obviously like benefited from. The PBC platform's been, very good, put up very good fights over the last few years. And now they're kind of in a weird situation. As it pertains to Canelo Alvarez, if he's a free agent, yeah, everybody should be throwing a lot of money at him. I would like to see him fight David Benavidez still. That's the main Canelo Alvarez fight that I
You're
want.
You and
But
everybody else,
but
that's a boxing fan wants to see that fight.
it doesn't look like that's gonna happen though in the immediate. But I'm fine with him taking on Edgar Berlanga, though I don't think he's ready, or Jaime Munguia, though I don't think he's ready, because I think those two guys should actually fight each other. But Canelo Alvarez is here without a formal opponent. It's basically, the 1st of March, and he's going to fight in 2 months.
So for PBC, when you take a look at the deal that they made on a business standpoint, totally makes sense. Yeah, they're probably going to lose money after Jermel put up a stinker against, Canelo Alvarez. And they're like, I don't know if it necessarily makes sense to give you this 35 million guaranteed for Jermall Charlo. And when you take a look at it from that standpoint, definitely makes sense, right? But I'm kind of basing it, and you said something interesting, Bryan. You said, a lot of people aren't going to take Canelo's side. I kind of compare this to the NBA. Are you either with the players or are you with the owners? Because if you look at Canelo and what he made a deal, and the deal was, yo, I got 3 fights with you. And clearly it was to knock off both Charlo brothers first. That was a part of the deal. And they agreed to that. They agreed to a 3 fight deal, and clearly Canelo's plan was to fight both Charlo brothers, right? PBC agreed to give him 35 million guaranteed. It's not Canelo's fault that Mel went in there and barely did anything. That's not Canelo Alvarez's fault, right? So he signed a deal with PBC, they agreed to it, and PBC, regardless of if they're thinking it's not a business, it's not going to help their business pretty much at that point. They'll lose money off of it. They agreed to that with Canelo. That was their agreement. So, I mean, a lot of people are probably going to take PBC side because Canelo has been in issues like this before. Remember, he had a problem as well with Oscar De La Hoya. And I'm not surprised that this PBC thing kind of fell apart, because right now, PBC and Amazon, if you really think about it, I'm very curious to know if Amazon also went into business with PBC because they knew that they had Canelo signed for 3 fights. That could also be a reason why Amazon was very interested in signing with PBC, right? Because they have the biggest name in boxing. But now you take a look at PBC and you take a look at the roster, and we are going to get into the other guy that recently just left PBC. When you take a look at their big names, I guess it would only be Tank. And then you got Eddie Hearn, who is kind of being the promoter right now. That's a little bit cool with everybody. He works well with these fighters because Devin Haney is working with him, is not really working with him. You know what I mean? He's moving around. So Eddie Hearn's kind of playing it well. And Canelo Alvarez, it is rumored. It hasn't officially been announced, but it is rumored Cinco de Mayo weekend, he's going to be taking on Jaime Munguia first. And as you know, Oscar De La Hoya and Eddie Hearn have been able to put together a fight recently. Edgar Berlanga could possibly be seen, in September. Another big weekend, Mexican weekend as well in September, usually Canelo weekend. But I'm not going to lie, this isn't the worst fight that we could get. In fact, I think Jaime Munguia to me is a little bit more interesting than Jermall Charlo at this point. Just because of what we saw Munguia do to John Ryder. Is he ready? I don't know if anyone's really ready for Canelo Alvarez. I know Edgar Berlanga is not ready for Canelo Alvarez because I think that's a tough task. We did put a video together and we let you guys know why we think Jaime Munguia and Edgar Berlanga need each other. But nonetheless, Canelo Alvarez leaving PBC on his terms. They're mutually separating. And he's going to probably fight Jaime Munguia on Cinco de Mayo weekend. Who is his next opponent? We'll wait and see and find out. But Canelo's going to make his bread somehow. And he's leaving for those reasons.
Part of this is also Jamal Charlo not looking great against Jose Benavidez. Excuse me, even though he won that fight, that was also a return from a 2.5 year absence in November of 2023. That I don't think a lot of people even remember, given that the card it was on and
It was a
Hugo
good fight.
Andrade. Yeah, like it was fine. But I felt like a lot of people thought that he would come back and get the stoppage. I wasn't surprised that he didn't because of the long layoff and Jose Benavidez. I mean, it took Terrence Crawford 12 rounds to knock him out. Now, I would propose that this next person we talk about should probably fight both of the Charlo brothers instead of Canelo Alvarez. But yeah, I think Jaime Munguia is a more interesting fight anyway, just from a purity standpoint, from a boxing standpoint. I don't think either of these dudes are going to test Canelo that much.
I mean, if you take a look at the John Ryder fight, I think some people might want to place some money on Jaime Munguia. But for Canelo Alvarez, he's pretty much leaving because of the bread. He was guaranteed money and he's not going to get it, so he's leaving for the bread. As for
Some people would
Terrence
disagree
Bud
with you.
Crawford,
Some people
yeah,
would disagree with you. Some people would say that he's just like kind of,
cherry picking.
yeah, taking an easier path, so to speak.
I
Although I
mean,
don't think
maybe
Jaime Munguia is.
that's.
Is Jaime Munguia an easier opponent than Jermall Charlo, who just came off of a 2.5 year layoff and looked okay against Jose Benavidez Jr.?
I mean, I thought he looked pretty good against Jose Benavidez Jr. I don't think he had like a phenomenal performance, but I thought it was definitely a good fight after not being in the ring for 2 years.